This is Hip-Hop Untold Stories, Chapter 4. Tonight, the spotlight's on Miami's own Gigolo Tony as he digs deep into the legacy that shaped him. Guided by the legendary Wildman Teddy T, the stories that surface are raw, real, and almost unbelievable. The kind you can only get straight from the source. When Gigolo Tony hears that JT Money is a fan, it hits different, lifting his spirit and reminding him why the grind matters. And while we celebrate Tony's journey, we're still holding space for the names that built the foundation, Ron May and Pretty Tony, because their chapters are far from over. So lock in, download the iHeartRadio app, and set Hip-Hop Untold Stories as your #1 preset. The culture lives here, and the legends speak for themselves.
Oh, once again, man, we are back live. Hip-Hop Untold Stories, brought to you by Fubu Film, Star Quality Entourage Brand Management. I am your host, the OG Wildman Teddy T. And today, man, I keep telling y'all, man, we're going to keep coming with them, man. These brothers, man, from the 80s and 90s that changed the game for y'all. Today, we got Gigolo Tony, the one and only, got a new, so you better jump on it. Jig, what's up?
What's up, Wildman Teddy T, Gigolo in the house.
Man, we got Gigolo Tony in the house, man. Y'all know back in the days, this brother put in work, but we're going to find out exactly what he did, man. So, Jig, I'm going back to 1980, man. 1980, what was going on?
1980 was fresh out of high school, you know, and trying to figure out what I wanted to do in life. And I came up on this opportunity to become a rapper. So that's how I became Gigolo Tony.
Jig was born. So what was the environment? Where did you go to actually create all this element?
Well, Foresight Records, Billy Hines had a record company in the Lauderhill Mall, which was the hangout. You know, everybody used to go out there and hang out on the weekend, after school, whatever, that was the spot. And Billy was attempting to make a record, The Parents of Roxanne. He had two people that was trying to do the record. He had Lacey Lace, which was an extraordinary female rapper, and they had from WRBD, they had the Mad Hatter. He was doing the father part. So, make a long story short, he couldn't get it down, and so Billy asked me to come in the studio that night when they was trying to do it, and I think Kane Dog was the one who mostly wrote it, and they gave it to me. I read it off the paper, and born Gigolo Tony. That's how Gigolo Tony was born.
Boom, in the games. So this is like 1982, right?
Yeah, the end of 83, I think it was. Maybe last 82 or 83, something like that.
You know what I'm saying? And so after this record's popping, like, what was your next move? Like, how did you start to solidify? Because at this time, Fat Man got the Pentas going, and I remember the Pentas was like crazy, you know what I'm saying? That was like hip hop for us, you know what I'm saying? All the different, you know, songs, everybody used to rock out of there. So what was that going on for you?
Well, most people who attend or remember the club and everything, the Panther, they knew me as a comedian, because I started off as a comedian in the talent shows and everything, and you know, I used to crack on people. I used to crack, make jokes or whatever. And everybody was like, well, he must gonna be a comedian. So that was kind of strange when I came out as a rapper. They couldn't believe it. They were like, oh, that's the one who used to crack on people. So
and you performed at the Pentas. Did you perform your records over there?
I think I did one show at the Pentas since I was, you know, Gigolo Tony.
Right. And what was the other, did you do Infernos?
No, I never did the Infernos. I did, I think I did the Pac Jam.
Okay.
And as far as Miami, I think that was the only place I did.
So where else, like when you started coming up and you started making music, what was like, because you told me you made 6 albums. So what was the process of making the first, and what were some of the records on those first couple albums?
Well, the first album was Ice Cold. That was...
That's what you with the ice, with the...
Right, and we actually shot that inside the Ready Ice factory.
Who used to come up with your album covers? Because all your album covers was like dope. You was like, always had good style, good clothes.
Basically, I'll say the whole group, myself, Craig, whatever, we would be, you know, we'll come up with a concept of the album, so we would find a place and we would walk around, okay, let's take this shot, let's take that shot. So I remember for Ain't It Good to You, when we made that album cover, we were walking on the pier and saw this yacht. So we just hopped up on the yacht and started taking pictures. You know, we didn't know who yacht it was. We just hopped up on there and started taking pictures.
So when you said the crew, give us the names of the people that was with you at that time.
First of all, DJ Fat Man, Ron May. He was DJ Fat Man at the time.
Right.
He was my first DJ.
Okay.
And then after Fat Man started doing his own thing, along came DJ Crash. DJ Crash was still in high school. DJ Crash was maybe like 15 or 16.
He went to school with me.
And he kind of, when he came to audition, you know, at the record company, he came and auditioned in the back of the record company. And I heard him and I said, okay, you know, he young, but, you know,
nice.
Right, he was nice on them turntables, so that's how he became my DJ.
And I mean, back in the days, we're talking about nice scratching.
Right, and cutting and stuff.
Like, you know, because this like how you would hear in New York, we was on the same elements because of the fact that hip-hop was such a big impact on South Florida, you know what I'm saying?
Correct.
And this is why, you know, a lot of the music was starting to come out of South Florida after a while because it was like, man, this is incredible. We want to see what we could do. You know, as far as talking to like the Disco Rick and everybody, you know, it was like, it was such a fan of it that they had to just start doing it for themselves, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so now I moved to Fort Lauderdale in I moved here in 83, 84. I came down to visit for my first time in 1980, 81. That's when I heard Sexy Lady and the Chief, Where's the Beef?
Right.
And I went to Lauderdale Mall, you know what I'm saying? So it was like, I was in the same elements. I probably passed you a couple times going in there. And then after a while, I started hearing, you know, Hokey Pokey. Trues and Bows, forget about it. Talk to me about the Trues and Bows time, because that record was crazy.
Trues and Bows was one of my favorite records too, you know, but it never dropped as a single off the record.
It was just playing on the street.
Right, and it was, you know, it was one of those records that was a street record.
Right, right.
You know, even though it was one of the best album, one of the best songs on the album, it never dropped as a single. So I think that maybe hurted it a little bit because it never dropped as a single, and it was like straight street. Street loved it, that record.
Man, that record, that record was crazy. So talk about how you and Fat Rome connected, you know what I'm saying, and how y'all started with coming together.
Actually, Fat Rome was my neighbor, and we grew up together, you know, so once I got into the game, you know, once Lacey Lace left, and, you know, I was looking for maybe like a hype man to come on the road with me and do it, and I hooked up with Fat Rome because he was my neighbor, and, you know, that was kind of easy, and he was like our gimmick because, you know, everybody loved Fat Rome. Anytime we was on the road, everybody had their groupies. You know, I had Gigolo Tony groupies.
Right, right.
They had Fat Rome groupies. They had DJ Crash groupies. The dancers had their groupies. So everybody had their groupies when we were on the road.
And you know, just keeping on that theme right there, you know, that was big. You guys were out, you were young, you're making money, and you're able to just connect with girls from all over. What kind of impact did that have on you at the time as being an artist?
Oh, man, it was crazy, man, because most of the time when we go out on the road, I wouldn't care about the money. I was looking at the girls, you know. I'm like, boy, we finna get us some girls. And what we would do, you know, my group, we was, you know, because I was always level-headed for one, and, you know, like I say, when we used to go like to different cities and stuff, first thing we do once we get to the hotel, we'll drop our bags and we'll get on the city bus and go to the mall. You know, the biggest mall, the best mall, and we'll look for girls.
Right.
And so by time for a show, we done gave out maybe like 10 backstage passes. So we got all these girls at the show. We got our pick. And, you know, so at the end of the day, every show, and you go to the hotel, nothing but girls. So, you know, I was crazy about the girls before I really know what's going on in the rap business.
And you was kind of like a ladies' man. Like I said, for me, you was the LL Cool J of the South. You know what I mean? Because this how you always dress. We always remember the BMW shot. The BMW shot is like iconic as far as Gigolo Tony, you know what I'm saying, being that dude, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That other guys could look up to, you know what I mean? And that was kind of like, you gave a lot of people my age, I graduated, or I left school in 89, you know, so from that time period, you gave an image to a lot of people in Fort Lauderdale, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I don't know if you was aware of that being who you were, you know what I'm saying? But from a kid growing up underneath that culture, I could say that, you know. And just Hokey Pokey, what was, because Hokey Pokey was like, oh man, now we got to dance, we moving around. So what was that one like?
That was a fun record, you know. I was trying to get something that would create like a dance craze, you know, not only for the Miami bass, but for the whole hip hop genre. You know, I wanted to do something that would probably, you know, that would start a dance craze. You know, from something everybody was familiar with the hokey pokey growing up, but it wasn't in hip hop music form. You know, so I just tried to put it in hip hop music form.
And that's what was so good, because I guess, like you said, since you had that comedy element, when you made Smurf Rock had so many different. It's like you composed that record, you know, with the da-da-da-da, Old MacDonald had a form, all these different elements. Like, how did you, the Smurfs, and you didn't get no kind of cease and desist. They let all those samples, everything go.
Yeah, I was trying to do something different, you know, because everybody was doing Shake Your Booties and Shake Your Titty records.
Right.
So I was trying to do something different.
So in the time of Miami bass, you were saying, hey, I want to come on this level. I don't want to follow suit with all the raunchiness and all of that.
Right. Not only that, just the Shake Your, because we had a whole bunch of Shake Your Booty, Shake Your Titty songs. Everybody was doing it. So I wanted to do something different, you know, so that's why I came up with the comedy, the dance, you know, the different sound on the bass, and the comedy part of it, the aspect of the song.
So, like, just go through the elements of how you created Smurf Rock, because everything in there is you use Fat Albert.
Right. First of all, starting out with the Old MacDonald, you know, which was like a children's song, children's tale. Old MacDonald had a farm.
E-I-E-I-O.
Right. And on that farm, he had some bass, you know. And this is how it goes. Bass. And then the Smurf came with, you know, that was one of the favorite cartoons of the time, the Smurfs, you know.
You just took everything and didn't care.
And so I just put it all in a pot and stirred it up, and that's how I came out with Smurf Rock.
When you really think about that record to this day, man, it's like you was able just to use everything and got no clearance, and that record is, to this day, a timeless record. You will hear that. DJ Nasty probably played it today. You know what I'm saying?
Right. It's like one of those iconic records, like, you know, Bass McCann, or Bass Rock Express, or Throw That D. You know, that's like one of those iconic records that when they play, you know, when it's played, you know that it's Smurf Rock.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, at this point,
thank you.
Now, you came up with Shadi, ADE, KJ and the fellas. Uncle Luke is making a lot of noise in Miami. People started going from Forsyth to Luke. What made you stay with Forsyth?
I think just the loyalty of Billy gave me a shot, and the family, you know, already that Forsyth was, you know, everybody was like a big family. We didn't have no beef. You know, we toured together. You know, when we were on tour, we hung out together. You know, we partied together. So we were like a big family.
And it was this, I mean, I always respected you for doing that. You know what I'm saying? As like, I always saw that you took your own lane in the business. You never really followed suit with the music or character of who you was in the business. And was that something that you was conscious of? Did you know that that's what you were doing?
No, I was just being myself, you know. And to piggyback off what we were talking about for us, Luke, and signing, actually, Joy Boy was trying to sign me away from Forsyth. You know, they wanted to pick up that Ain't It Good to You album. They wanted to sign me away from Forsyth. But, you know, I stayed with Forsyth and hung in there with Forsyth.
Right. I mean, yeah, because, I mean, before Joy Boy with Disco Rick and the Dogs, and then Uncle Al came in, even the guy who I was with, Mad
and then Forces, you know.
Right. Even the guy I was with, Mad Money Merc, we had got to deal with Joy Boy. And, I mean, Alan Johnson, are you familiar with Alan Johnson?
Yeah.
What's your relationship with Alan Johnson?
I just know him from the business, being in the business.
Yeah, he's always a cool guy. I'm still with him to this day.
Right.
And he mentored me all the way through the whole business of understanding. Rod Kenny did radio. He was like sitting in the office with him, just listen to him. You know what I mean? And I thought about all these things later, all the things that I did. And it was because I was connected with all these people. Jim Sears, Jerry Russian, you know, being from Fort Lauderdale. Frank Wizard Colson, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I know the Wizard real good. Shout out to the Wizard.
So that's what I'm saying. During this time period, could you explain to people, like, Fort Lauderdale had its own element of a music business, correct?
Correct.
What was that? What was that like? Give everybody an explanation of understanding that.
Well, Forsyth was like Fort Lauderdale. Forsyth was really it wasn't the only one. I think Ron, I think he had down South Lauderdale. He was trying to do something, and I think that was basically Forsyth was the only record company that was worldwide, was known worldwide. But a lot of people trying to come up with record companies out of Fort Lauderdale.
Right. And Billy, the one thing that like I noticed with Billy them, that distribution was their game. It's like they made a lot of money through the distribution through South America. I remember the Peanuts gang, how they went out on the road and was out, 20,000 people per show.
Right.
He was 15, 16 years old, you know what I mean? Where were some of the places and furthest places that you went as doing tours?
Some of the first places was Georgia. When we basically, especially when we came out with the Parents of Roxanne, it was like I guess you can call it a Mason-Dixon line tour. Like from the Georgias, South Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama. Most of those places. Then we did go up, to like Michigan, California,
right.
And stuff like that. We did, go past the Mason-Dixon line.
With that record being from the Roxanne, New York element, would kind of take you on the East Coast through all those different areas.
Right. The East Coast really, though, wasn't the Parents of Roxanne. Smurf Rock really got me out there on the East Coast.
So the East Coast.
Right. The Parents of Roxanne was mostly Georgia and in the north, but the East Coast, Parents of Roxanne is like the East Coast up in, Michigan.
Right.
I did the Seam that had a place, one called the Seam or the Scream, whatever. It was like the what's that show they had in California? Where the Goose used to go back to the old days.
Right.
The Soul Train. The Scream was like the Soul Train of the North. I performed on there at one time.
So like now, there was a time I remember watching Chris Thomas, BT, and you was on there, Raptini was on there, and it was just dope that like we was watching Rap City in Broward County, you know what I'm saying? And I heard through the grapevine that you were the one that actually made that happen.
Correct. Yeah, they came down to shoot. Actually, the company that was affiliated with them, I brought them down to shoot videos. They shot 2 of my videos off when I started my own record company. I brought them down to shoot the video, and we shot at the Scandinavian Health Club. We shot some scenes there, and I think Raptina shot hers with the Dillard Band, out to Oswald to the park. But they came down here, Chris Thomas and everything, cool dude. Excuse me, we hung out, after the shoot, I would take them out, we rolled around, I had them all in the hoods and everything,
So, like, how did you put that together? Because at this time, you're really getting into business. How did you get from being an artist to starting your own label, and what was the elements that, that got you to doing that?
Just trying to, not only be an artist, but, realizing that the record company was making all the money,
Right.
So I wanted to get on that aspect of it, so myself and Wayne Toomer, rest in peace, and we started a record company, Def Cut Records, which we had his sister, Raptini, and we had Classic Clay, who used to be with ADE, and DJ Man, Clay Vassier, and the Def Rock crew,
right?
Which Devin and DJ Swift, they were like a white group, which we did like a surf kind of thing, and I mean they were big out in California,
right?
So
they were on your label,
right? They was on Def Cut.
Def Cut, that's dope. So it's like now you're moving, grooving. Raptini, Like a lot of people won't understand. You see Trina, Jackie O, but Raptini and Quillette, the first females. But then you say, what's the other girl you say from Lauderdale that was rapping in the 80s with you?
Oh, Lacey Lace.
Lacey Lace.
Right.
He was rapping, you know what I mean? So like we want to kind of give props to all the earlier females that was still out there in the game, you know what I'm saying? Because when Raptini came out with, oh my Lord, I'm coming now. I'm coming. And my girl, a lot of people was in that video. So like how did y'all, was she already talented? How did y'all connect and say that y'all going to work with a project with her?
Yeah, she was already talented. She was, doing her thing behind the scenes.
Right.
And, and then Wayne was like, hey, my sister could rap, blah, blah, blah. We should do a record on her. So when I heard her, I'm like, oh, yeah, she tight. So we went in the studio and we cut a record on her and Classy Clay, Classy Clay, he was, with ADE, so he wanted to go out on his own. So he came up with a record, which would have been technicalities, him and DJ Man. That was a big record too.
Yeah. DJ Man was Shyde's DJ.
Right.
He came out of that. And that's the complexity of with hip hop and the different elements of ATL and, connections of the different people and areas, when Toomp was down here with JT, and man, they was all connected.
Right. And Toomp started with Shyde,
right.
Toomp and
I'm saying Toomp was Shyde.
Right. And then he went with what the other guy, TIP, Tip.
But he was with Poison Clan even then he went with it.
Right. So he came from Atlanta with Shady, then South Florida, he came to South Florida and he was a big part of South Florida hip hop.
How much of an impact did you feel your music had in Atlanta?
I didn't know until I met people, like CeeLo and Outkast, and they told me, how much my music meant to them, how they was grew up on me, how they loved my music. I didn't realize how impact it was because even though we was touring through there and everything, the only person that we, knew was Shyde and the USA Breakers, which Shyde was like an opening act when the tours come through, but he was tearing up the scene,
Right.
So Vanis, which was my manager at the time, she ended up, getting him signed to Foresight.
Mm-hmm. And we talking about this is 83, 84 because Rapper Never Die came out in 1984.
Right.
And so y'all was already touring around and saw him, like you said, open it up, and then
Right.
he came down then.
Mm-hmm.
And it's dope because like you're experiencing all these elements, touring, but I think what was the difference between now, of course, social media and PR, people actually
Right.
knowing who you were. And, because it's like after a while, it's kind of like you wasn't on the scene making music, so it's kind of like you faded away. It's
Right.
like I always would see you, connect, you know what I mean? And it's like, for me, this is the reason why we're doing this, to give you all the opportunity to tell things that people never got to know or people didn't, or things maybe that you wanted to tell people, because you didn't have the media, because you didn't have the outlets. You know what I'm saying?
But one thing about social media now too is also keeping us alive, because I didn't realize how much stuff I had on social media until somebody say, hey, go to TikTok and put Gigolo Tony in. I put Gigolo Tony in. They got people dancing, young people dancing to the songs and creating dances and all this kind of stuff. And if you put it in on YouTube, you'll see all the songs that I forgot I had made, that will come up, and people doing stuff, to them. So
definitely. So, what do you feel like is the elements that's going to help keep your legacy alive and people to know who Gigolo Tony was?
Not the media, but I guess like the TikToks and the YouTube. The younger people, they say everything revolves around.
Right,
so the younger people, I think the market is getting oversaturated with all the hip hop, with the violence and there's no more jamming, no more dancing because you see when they get on TikTok and YouTube and all that, they want to dance and they want to make that. Right. So it's hard to do that with that type of music.
Right.
So that's why they're reaching back and grabbing our music and they're creating stuff, to make it new and have fun with it.
Right. That's definitely the new thing. And then, so what about making new music? Do you have anything new that's on the rise for people to be able to?
Yeah, I'm working on something. I'm working on, some new music. which, you know, I want to tap in on that Southern soul, you know, but also, you know, hip hop and, you know, Miami bass, because that's what, you know, I cut my teeth on. So
Yeah.
I always would be a Miami bass artist, you know, but Southern soul is what's happening. So sometimes you got to ride what's hot.
What's going down? And you have a song coming up with Urban Mystic, right?
Correct.
That's going to be crazy. You know what I'm saying? I think that'll be a good lane for you two to jump in, and then you just take off. Because once again, that ladies element, and then boom, your vibe is like right there, party, let's have fun.
Right, and the urban mix is gonna bring that Southern soul, you know, that voice, that old school voice, you know. So I think we're gonna be a good match once we can get this project done, you know.
It was cool. A couple years ago, the 50th year of hip hop. My girl Velvet, she had called me and she was like, Teddy, I want to do a 50-year hip hop. And we're looking for Dougie Fresh. We're looking for, you know, one of these guys. And I was like, everybody was trying to wait for what BET was going to do. Record everybody. So I said, look, we've got our own people right here in South Florida who are just as impactful as the people that you want. You know what I'm saying? I said, BBSMP, I need you. I said, that record's crazy. You know what I'm saying? Prince Raheem, Gigolo Tony. She was like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. So she went back and she just called me right away. They said, yes, Teddy. That, like, wow. They didn't think of that. But, you know, they remember growing up and how, you know, you guys was impactful. So, you know, we got you guys, you came through, and the feeling when we played your record and the excitement of that whole night, how did that make you feel?
It made me feel good because seeing all the aunties and, you know, who grew up on our music, you know, and then the young people, you know, feeling the music too, it let me know that, you know, like Shadi said, rap will never die, you know, because that was, you know, that was a good thing that you did, and where you stepped in and say, no, we don't need New York. We got superstars right down here in South Florida.
Right here.
And, you know, and once she researched it and came back to you and said, oh, let's do that, you know, that let me know that it meant something.
And, you know, me just thinking on my feet, I was able to record that and bring it to the Urban Film Festival. We actually won, which is a whole element of, you know, taking it, you know, where we want it to be is why I do Hip-Hop Untold Stories, because I want people to know your story. I want people to be able to see, touch, you know, get back on the road. I want to go to another concert and hear Gigolo Tony rocking, you know what I'm saying? And people just, you know what I mean? Because I think you still got it and you still deserve that, you know what I mean?
Thank you.
And so you got the show coming up on the 27th at Amelia Earhart Park with Young and the Restless. What people can expect from that?
They can, I mean, we got the Young and the Restless, you got Prime Choice, you got other old school hip hoppers, and you got myself, Gigolo Tony. We're gonna give y'all a show, you know, and we're gonna keep this thing rolling.
Man, I just think that, you know, right now, the elements of everything is just growing. You know, if you're gonna be on the scene, people gonna wanna book you, because we did the event the other day, and I was interviewing JT Money. He was like, man, that's one of my favorite artists. I'm gonna stay till he get here. You know what I'm saying? And to see his response, you know what I'm saying? Mr. Charlie, they grew up. You know, they rock with a lot of different people, but you was their rapper. You know what I'm saying? How did that make you feel coming from your peers like that?
I mean, that make me feel real good because, you know, I got so much respect for them guys, you know, as being real rappers. I'm not saying that I'm not a real rapper, but they lived, you know, they lived and they grew up wanting to be a rapper, and that wasn't me. I just got lucky in the right place at the right time. But, you know, to know somebody like JT, you know, and Mr. Charlie, you know, that made me feel real good. That made me feel real proud, you know, because I got so much respect for those guys.
I mean, because it's like, I'm not going to say you separated yourself, but you wasn't really with them. You wasn't really with a lot of the people back then.
Correct. I'm like the you know, like the not the dad, but, you know, I'm like the old guy who they talking about. They grew up listening to, you know. So when they say, you know, I have to kind of think and like, damn, they're right. I was out maybe a couple of years before these guys. So, you know, because you know the question I never get from when I'm being interviewed most of the time, who influenced me? You know, I never get that question.
Okay.
You know, because for one, like I said, I didn't, you know, want to be a rapper. That one I was looking for. I thought I was going to be an athlete.
Right.
So I never thought. So I liked it, music and hip hop and rap, but it was nobody that I said, oh, I grew up listening to him, or you know, oh, I want to be like him. And if you listen to a lot of my early album, I kind of took from other people, like in hip hop, like the Beastie Boys and Truth and Vows. That came from when they turned their record around.
Right.
To do, so I said, okay, I'm gonna turn my record around
Right.
and do that. You know, so I took a lot from New York hip hop or the early hip hop myself, but I didn't have no person that I love that person. I really, you know, grew up listening to them and wanted to be like them.
But you can kind of tell with what you did. Like I would never. That's why I would never think to ask you that question, because you had your own mode. You know, there wasn't like no one else, and I don't think there'll never be. You said it the best. It's Gigolo Tony, the one and only.
Right. I had to create my own self, my image. You know, I had to create it.
But how did you do that? I mean, because I think that's a big question for you to answer as being an artist for these younger artists, because you created a persona. You know what I mean? You created a persona that actually, you know, a lot of times a song gets bigger than the artist itself.
Right.
But you was able to be ahead of the game. So what gave you the confidence? What made you say Gigolo? Like what all that came into play?
But the Gigolo concept came because I was always a ladies' man.
That's right.
You know, so, you know, I worked out and my body was like, I had cuts, you know, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, I even, you know, had enough confidence to take a picture in a bikini on the album cover, you know, with the two girls, you know. And on and on stage, when I did "Please Don't Go," which was my slow song, I would come out with a robe and have a bikini on it and open it up, you know, and the women, they just would fall out, you know. So I always was confident in myself, you know. So that's kind of where the Gigolo and the persona came as, you know, being a ladies' man.
Right. I mean, it's incredible because you're doing like Teddy Pendergrass on the rap scene.
Right, you know, and because I knew the screaming was gonna come from the ladies. Right. You know, the guys gonna listen, they gonna come to the concert for the ladies, but the ladies is gonna be hyping, the ladies are gonna scream for you. So I did stuff to, you know, hey, contact the ladies, you know.
I mean, there's definitely a whole impact of understanding, you know, the method of the madness, you know what I'm saying, and the records that you had, and the impact throughout all the areas. And like I said, you know, you're out here, you're still working, people can still tap. How can people get in touch with you?
Well, Facebook, you know, I'm not a real big social media people. I just started, you know, getting into social media because I see how much effect they have on keeping our legacy alive, you know, so I'm getting into more and more social media.
That's it. And let me know, a couple weeks ago, we was in Atlanta for Play Day in the
Right, correct.
And Slick Vic from Jam Pony was there rocking out. How important was Jam Pony Express when you was doing your thing?
Jam Pony was actually, they were keeping, you know, that side. They were taking our records and spread, you know, they were like a promotional tool. They might have been the biggest promotional tool around at that time because people would take a Jam Pony tape and take it off to college, and they would dub it and they would take it back home. So they were a big promotional tool for, you know, Miami-based independent record companies and stuff. And even for a DJ, and Slick Vic was real talented because he scratched on, you know, a couple of my records and stuff. When we need scratching, we would go get Slick Vic. You know, so Jam Pony is just as big as hip-hop as the artist theirself, you know.
Definitely. Disco Rick said the same thing. And that's what, you know, we're just building up because we're going to bring Vic on here as well. But it's just understanding the impact of everybody that, you know, the collectiveness, how it helped for everybody, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
What about, so what was your relationship and the growth that you gained from working with Billy Hines?
I probably the business, you know, well, the business, how Billy, you know, came up. I mean, he had a good ear too, because he came up with some fresh ideas himself. A lot of those ideas, some of them Billy would say, yeah, let's do it this way or do it that way. Or either Adrian, which is ADMCADE, we all would be in the studio on each other's record, and we would throw our input in. And at that time, we didn't know we was producing.
Right.
Other people would get the credit for producing, and that's how I kind of like learned more of the business aspect, from Vanis. I would come up there and I would sit up there with Vanis and, see how she was doing and, how she was doing the business, how she was talking to people, how she was setting up, the shows and this and that. So I kind of became more of a business later on in my career.
Right.
That's how I learned the business aspect of the game.
And I tell people that if you want to be in the business, you got to be around people that's doing the business.
Correct.
Because you get to see it firsthand. You know what I mean? And I'm great that you said that, and understanding that you was able to start a label and move forward. Doing business like that. A lot of people wasn't thinking on that level back then, and a lot of people probably didn't know that you had your own label. Because everybody else was just busy having fun, having girls. Like, everybody said the same thing. The money was whatever, because the girls and the excitement was way more than the money, So, like, how is that feeling? Like, compared to understand, like, you could have collected maybe some more money, had some more real estate, some more things. Like, how does that feel now, knowing that, you kind of missed out on the money element, but you have the stories?
I mean, if I ain't gonna say I feel bad, because everything happened for a reason, and we go in a certain direction for that reason. God take us that way. But if I knew then what I know now, I'll be a millionaire in the business.
Right. Right. I mean, that's the thing. It's like the advantage that people have now over what y'all didn't have then.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And what y'all was able to create still. You know what I'm saying, is impactful. You know what I'm saying? So we definitely want to thank you for what you did for the culture, what you're doing for the culture. Definitely a legend, definitely an icon for us to, take a look at. And that's why we're here at the
thank you. And you and the hip-hop world is totally welcome.
No, we got to. That's why we're here at the Art of Hip Hop Nuclear Studio to, bring this environment so one day we'll come here and Gigolo Tony's going to be on the wall. You know what I'm saying? That's my objective, to make all the Southern. We're going to get a Southern, Miami, South Florida section in here. You know what I'm saying?
And we all got to, in the hip-hop world, come together. If you taking out time, in your schedule, and you putting this together to help us, we all, if y'all listening, hip-hoppers, old rappers, we all got to show up, and we all got to, turn up, and we all got to represent,
That's it. Give it all you got, baby. Give it all you got. Because it's all we got is us and this culture. And if we're not doing this, nobody else is going to do it. They're going to just let it get swept under the rug, So once again, we appreciate you for coming through. Love you for what you did for the business and the culture. And it ain't over.
I'd like to hear that, because I'm ready now. I'm ready.
We got more in store. Hip-Hop Untold Stories, brought to you by FUBU Film, Star Quality Entourage. My man, Gigolo Tony, any last words you want to say to the people?
I want to say come out for the show on the 27th, September the 27th, Amelia Earhart Park. I think that's in Hialeah, correct?
Yep.
And enjoy yourself. We're going to be signing autograph meet and greet from 12 to 2. So come out, get the free food, get autograph, talk to the artists, take picture with us and everything. And come back for the show, because it's definitely going to be a show you don't want to miss.
Yes, man. Hip-Hop Untold Stories with Gigolo Tony.
Peace.
Chapter 4 of Hip-Hop Untold Stories will be remembered as one of the most powerful yet. Gigolo Tony opened up in a way that shook the culture. From the streets to the stage, his words hit deep, and the world felt the weight of his legacy. But the story doesn't stop here. Ron May and Pretty Tony the World is waiting for your chapters. Your voices matter, your history matters, and OG Wildman Teddy T is ready to bring it to life. So keep it locked, download the iHeartRadio app, and set Hip-Hop Untold Stories as your #1 preset. Because this is where the truth lives, the legends speak, and the culture never dies.